Welcome to Your Number Man, the podcast where we dive deep into business, finance, and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Johan, but you can call me Your Number Man. Over the years, I've worn many hats in the business world, from marketing ace to financial expert. And now I'm here to share my expertise with you. Each week, we'll explore strategies, insights, and stories to help you navigate the complexities of running a successful business. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things business and finance. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's unlock the secrets to building and thriving business together. This is Your Number Man, where we help you achieve a bigger life in business. Welcome back to another episode of Your Number Man, where we decode the numbers behind business success. And today we're going to talk about prices and pricing and costing and how it influences your business. Now, what is price? Price is the value that customers are willing to sacrifice to obtain a product or a service. It's basically what they're willing to pay to better their lives or add value to their businesses. Obviously, pricing isn't just about setting a number. It's a strategic decision that can make or break a business. Now, let's think about it. In a business, what is most essential? You need to have customers and you need to sell goods or services to those customers. And when you sell something, it's got to have a price. Let's just go a little bit back in time. Let's say about 12,000 years. People were so-called hunters-gatherers. So that's when basically bartering started between people. One person was probably good at livestock and the other person was good at growing stuff, and they would start bartering. Okay, how much do you want for that nice big buffalo that's standing there in the back of your paddock? And the guy would say, I don't know how much you got. Well, I can give you a barrel of potatoes. He said, no, that's a bit cheap, mate. Okay, 5 barrels. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So bartering started, and that became the norm. People exchanged goods and services directly based on their need and availabilities. The economies and communities evolved basically spontaneously from a long process of these barter exchanges. Bartering was a way to make the people happy with the transfer of goods. And that's basically the modern day pricing. It's a system of pricing, and today it's become very sophisticated. I mean, a lot of people can't actually remember when the last time you touched a $100 bill, but we sit on our phones and we buy things from Shopify and go into the shop and do FPOS transactions. And it's all based on pricing that's originated when people started bartering for goods. Now, money has probably existed for the last 5,000 years. The earliest form of commodities was obviously livestock. It's a bit difficult, walking around with a bull. So they started creating money. First of all, probably was salt, and then later on seashell, and then perhaps started getting metal like copper, silver, and then gold. Became actually good, valuable measures to transfer. That's forms of currency that were introduced, and this marked the beginning of pricing as we know it today. Now, even in those early days, correct pricing was all about survival. It was survival for themselves, surviving for their families. It's still true today, but now, a lot of us are in business, a lot of us are inspiring to do business, and we have to price our products to make a profit. Well, why do you want to make a profit? You want to be sustainable. Why do you need to be sustainable? To survive, to grow, to look after the health and welfare of yourself, your loved ones, your community, and play a bigger part in the role of the economy. So the whole reasoning about pricing is profit. And we know profit, as I said a lot of times in my episodes, profit is not a dirty word. Profit means sustainability, survival. It's your opportunity to grow. As one of my previous guests, Dr. Z, also said, you're in harmony with nature. Everything grows. So that's the idea about pricing and profit. Now, pricing isn't just about setting a number. It's a strategic decision that can make or break a business, as I mentioned. So along with your product, your right kind of promotion, where you're going to sell it, your pricing is a crucial marketing component as well. Now, I've studied marketing back in the 90s, long before, there was computers, but not everybody owned a computer those days. Long before digital marketing was even an idea. Four ingredients to your marketing mix are your product, your promotion of that product, your place where you sell it, and in the price at which you sell it as well. So that's from a marketing point of view. Now, from a finance point of view, we're looking at a business to thrive and to have a good, sustainable return on investment and to make a profit. So that is where your price is important. So basically, imagine I've got two circles where marketing is on one side and then your finance is on the other side. Then they will overflow with each other and your pricing is in the middle. So you're almost marrying your marketing with your financial strategy of your business. At the right place, with the right promotion, on the right product, will give you price that is going to be sustainable. I know it's saying it over and over, but it is important. That's why I'm basically keep on stressing it the whole time. Now, there are a few strategies when we look at pricing. The first one is cost-based pricing, then value-based pricing, and then dynamic pricing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them for the next few minutes. I'll probably focus more on costing and value-based to get a better understanding of pricing as well. Pricing and costing technically goes hand in hand. When we talk about cost-based pricing, it sounds straightforward. It involves calculating the cost of your product or your service and adding a margin to it to ensure your profitability. There's the markup method and the margin method, which comes back to the margin anyway, because the margin is your gross profit. In my second episode, I spoke a lot about gross profit and your break even and the importance of your costing as well. So do yourself a favor, perhaps just go back to that second episode and have a listen to my discussion on the costing, gross profit, and the break even as well. So cost-based pricing is an excellent primary pricing strategy for new products, as cost-based pricing is the definition of simplicity. However, for a greater profit is where good costing comes in. And with this cost-based method, you will need to know exactly what is the cost of your product or your service. What is the actual cost of a product? It's your direct cost that goes into either purchasing the product, if you're in a retail business, actually manufacturing or creating this product. So it's your inputs, your direct labor, and also some freight components, or if you use contractors for that matter. So this pricing method is based on two essential elements: have a very deep understanding of the cost of your product and services and your desired profit that you want to make from this product. Hence, what is the margin that you're aiming for? So just coming back to the whole concept, because a lot of people get confused and it's quite understandable. I've worked with some clients who wanted to get some of their products into retail stores, for instance, and the retail stores would say, okay, what is your margin? So we got to basically work out a little bit of a spreadsheet and say, okay, I've got this new product. It cost me $100 to make this product. My margin is 50%. That means I want to make a gross profit of 50% on that product. If I want to sell it for 150, for instance, my profit has got to be 50%. Now, it's difficult to convert the markup back into costing. So the margin would be the gross profit that you make on a product, basically your profit when people ask for your margin, and your markup is a certain percentage on top of your cost. Now, your margin would then be less, because if you're selling it for $150 and your cost was $100, you're making a $50 profit. Now, to get your margin, you're going to divide that $50 over your selling price. So it's 50 over 150, which will give you a 33%. So basically what I'm saying here, we should not get confused between the margin and the markup concept as well. Markup will always bring you back to a margin. So usually when you would go into a store and perhaps put your product at display, you want a margin, you're talking about your gross profit as well. And obviously, as my experience was with a lot of clients, the place that would want to buy it from you would always try to squeeze your margin. They say, we can't do a 40% margin. We can only give you a 30% margin. That's when you're probably going to say, well, I don't think it's going to work because my cost is this. You don't have to tell them all the cost layouts of your product. So costing is very important. What is your desired? How much would you be able to sell from this product as well? So everything basically evolves around how you're setting that price and the concept of how much would you eventually get from that product. Your margin is your barometer, basically benchmark your profit on. How many products that you sell, what are your overheads, and that will determine your total bottom line profit at the end of the day, as I've explained in some of my previous podcasts. But how do you boost sales and profit with cost-based pricing? Well, discounts can be very effective, but require a thorough understanding of your break-even point, your costs, and your desired profit as well. So a small discount may require a significant increase in sales to break even or turn a profit. So, for instance, I'm just to give you a bit of a funny example here. You go out at night and you come back home. Now, you don't really feel like going to bed yet. You just want to relax, perhaps have a cup of tea, put on a TV, watch a bit of music, rave, or whatever's on TV then. And then there's an ad break and this guy jumps out of a box and he's trying to sell you a second-hand car and say, oh, yeah, you guys got to come and buy this car. Usually this car for $20,000, but if you come tomorrow morning, you can get this car for $10,000. And you think, how the hell does he make his profit from that? Now, obviously, there's a lot involved with the whole marketing, and these people would definitely have done their numbers and know that there's probably like 3 times more people going to rock up tomorrow to buy a second-hand car for $10,000 than normal people that would rock up there to buy a car for $20,000. So they know it's all about volume. So it's a good strategy to use discounts, but in small businesses specifically, keep in mind that every time you give a discount, you basically give away your margin. Let's say, for instance, you got a product, and again, those of you that need a better understanding of this, feel free to hit me up on my website. I'm happy to have a short discussion with you. I'm happy to send you some templates, walk you through some ideas if you struggle with your pricing. But let me just go back to this concept about discounting. So you've got a product that you sell for $200. Your costing on that is $120. So your GP is usually 40%. So now you want to give them a 10% discount for that matter. So you've got to bring it down to 180. So you're basically giving away 10% of your margin. So instead of being a 40% gross profit, you're only getting a 30% gross profit on that as well. Now, let's say your overheads were $50,000. In normal circumstances, you would have had to sell 125,000 items for the month, but now you got to sell 25,000 more items to be able to break even. So what I'm saying, it's a small amount of discount, let's say a 10% discount, but you got to sell 20% more to bring in that amount of sales. So you got to really do your numbers. For instance, you get people late at night, they've got this knife that you see on TV, which they advertise, and they can slice tomatoes and it can slice potatoes and it slices through a tin of beer as well. And they say, I must be mental, I must be crazy, I'll sell this knife. It usually costs $20, but I'll give it to you for $5. But you can also get this sharpener and you get this spoon set with it all together. And then all you got to do is you got to phone in the next 10 minutes and everybody that's awake that time of night will probably run to their telephones and say, I want this knife set. Like the car salesman and the knife salesman, these people has done their research, they've done the numbers, they know they got to have an extraordinary amount of sales to be able to make a decent profit on it. So discount methods work. It all depends on the amount you sell, it depends on your overheads, but in some cases, a 10% discount means that you got to increase your sales by about 20% or even 30% or 50%. Depending on your sales and your break even. So quickly, just to refresh that, a good idea of your break even point, the amount of dollars that you got to sell to break even. You take your overheads, which could be, let's say, a certain amount of 50,000, and you divide it by your gross profit. That will give you a break even amount in dollars, what you got to achieve just to break even. You got to know that you can't give discounts away if you not even reach your break-even point. The advantages of cost-based pricing is it doesn't require a lot of additional market research. So it's easy. So if you've got a thorough understanding of how your model works and how your pricing works, you can basically set a price and then you're quite confident about your product or service cost, and it's a very simple, popular strategy to use among small and new businesses as well. There's many additional costs such as general business expenses, financial payments, and drawings that are not always clear to see from the profit and loss. and cannot always be accounted for, which is why GP is always higher than your net profit. But you can create a buffer against the surprising cost and fluctuations in demand by increasing the margin and easily estimating a revenue for a given month. So calculating or estimating your cost is the only data you have to guide you through your pricing decision. Now, this will allow you to push forward at least to a starting price to work as the market and customers develop. It helps determine a price that covers cost and provides a reasonable profit. Now, that was all about cost-based pricing. As we know, in the business world, it's not easy. It's about value. What value am I getting out of this? What value am I willing to sacrifice in terms of my wallet? That is why perhaps in ancient times, 12,000 years ago, when this guy with his 5 barrels of potato and wants to buy a buffalo, he's okay with it because that is the value that he sees in terms of 5 barrels of potatoes for a buffalo. Everybody's happy. So value-based pricing is about a competitive positioning and understanding of your market to tap into what drives your perceived value. Now, this is where your marketing experts would come in. And let's say, for instance, you take 2 cars. A car is a car. It takes you from point A to point B. As long as it's reliable, economic, and it takes you there within a certain amount of time, you don't really care what kind of car do you drive. Or, if you want to feel like James Bond, are you going to feel more like James Bond driving a Toyota Camry or the Quattro? Well, I'm probably going to go for the latter, for that matter. So it's all your perceived value as well. It's that feeling that you get. I've heard a podcast. I don't know how many of you listen to the podcast. His name is Andrew Huberman. And he spoke, the real currency in the world is actually dopamine. Dopamine is the hormone that drives us, that makes us feel good. It's that feeling, is that value that you perceive. That's the reason why you would pay, $80,000 to drive an Audi Quattro and you'll feel like James Bond instead of paying $50,000 and you drive a nice Toyota Camry and you're going to feel safe and it's going to be economical. I've said it before and I'm saying again, it's not going to make you feel like James Bond for that matter. I mean, I remember when I was in the army back in the mid-'80s and we were doing this boot camp. At the end of it, you would go and we called it vasbait. Now, vasbait is an Afrikaans word. It directly translated into English, it would probably mean hold on. So they send you out in the bush with you and your team, with one compass. Everybody's got 40 kilograms on their backs. You got 3 tins of food per day, 3 small tins of food per day, 1 liter of water. And you would go into the bush and do a bit of navigation and try to get back at camp within a week or 10 days, whatever the case might be. And I was only thinking about one thing that, it's got to take me through this. I was just dreaming every time there's another horizon or there's another mountain in front of us. I would just like an ice cold Coke on crushed ice there. So it's that value that you perceive. At that stage, I was probably willing to pay half my salary, which wasn't a lot in those days, for that crushed ice. I haven't drank a Coke for the last 5 years. Things change. But at that stage, it's all about that value, that feeling, that perceived enjoyment that you're going to receive from something. Now, like I said before, your value and your costing has to marry. So your marketing guys and your finance guys need to talk to each other to make sure we get a right price that's going to give you the maximum return on investment and not going to set us up to become broke. So that's why we need that perfect balance. As I said in one of my previous episodes, well, the word balance comes from the Latin word bilanx, means bi means 2 and lanx means plate. So it's 2 plates in balance. So it's like a scale. So we really need to understand it's balance, and it's a balance for the person that's going to buy it from you. Everybody's got to be happy with this. If you just want to have a bicycle just to drive around some of the footpaths, you're probably going to go to Big W and buy a mountain bike for $200. If you would like to load it on your car and you go into the mountains over weekends, you're definitely not going to buy something from Big W for $200. You're going to go to Bob's Extreme Mountain Bike shop in the main street. You're going to have a chat to Bob and he's going to make you the best deal that he can, and it's going to cost you $1,200 for a mountain bike, but you're going to feel bloody good about that sale. And Bob as well, he's going to make his profit and you're going to feel good. So everybody's in balance. Now, that was value-based pricing. We talked about cost-based pricing. And then the third one is obviously dynamic pricing. Now, that's something that we see a lot more in the world. These days, it's an economic factor. pricing is the supply and the demand. Demand is driven by your needs and what feeling that you would get, the value, and the supply is how much are there in the world. So if there's not a war, if there's a lot of fuel around, we're probably going to get our fuel for less than $1 a liter. When there is a public holiday coming up, there might be a bit of a war going on somewhere. Somebody is being a bit of a nuisance and decided, they're just going to increase the taxes on fuel, or whatever the case might be. You're going to start paying more than $2 a liter for fuel. It all depends on the dynamic pricing. A good example, for instance, is think about an Uber and the supply and demand. So on a Saturday night, you want to go out, or you've been to the nightclub, or you've been to the footy games, you want to get home, you get an Uber, that's going to cost you $60 perhaps. Where normally an Uber, a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning probably only costs you $30. So it's the same service that you get, but it depends on the dynamic pricing. So it's a continuous monitoring of the prices of the competitors and the needs and the supply and the demand of everybody involved. So it's quite dynamic for the man. And the same thing happens with Airbnbs or with airline tickets as well. Airline tickets are very expensive if you want to fly over Christmas. You might pay 3 or 4 times the amount what you would have paid 6 months ago, for that matter. It's the easiest thing in the world, basically setting prices. The oldest economic concept in the world is pricing, but sometimes it's hard to get in your head around. So just keep in mind, whether you're crunching numbers for cost-based pricing, you're leveraging value-based pricing to differentiate your offerings, or implementing dynamic pricing to stay agile. Remember, pricing isn't just about numbers, it's about strategy and value. If you want to have a chat, if you want to have some templates, if you need a bit of guidance on this, always happy to help. And then today's numeric would obviously be in relation to pricing. So the numeric is numbers in a row, numbers, profits show. Count your costs, 1, 2, 3. Get your prices to a T. Numbers, business grow. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me, and I hope today's session was valuable and you feel inspired to take action in your business. Remember, business success is about more than just numbers. It's about passion, determination, and a relentless drive to pursue your dreams through the help of numbers. So keep pushing forward, learning and striving for a bigger life in your business. If you found this podcast valuable, be sure to subscribe. Follow us on socials and leave a review if you enjoyed today's episode. And one last thing, if you want access to additional resources that will help you fast track your cash flow and financial freedom, visit yournumberman.com.au. Until next time, this is Johan, your number man, signing off. Thanks again.